Next thing we'll do is we'll cut a little tiny piece of solder. This being a project where we're going to have multiple solderings in it, we use a high heat solder, so later on when we solder something else, this won't reliquefy and the whole thing will come apart on us. So we'll be using high heat solder. High heat solder melts at around 1365. I do not like to cut my solder up into a bunch of little chips and leave it in a bowl or something like that. I find that the solder it turns green, it oxidizes in this handy flux. The other thing I don't like doing that is I don't like putting different solders in the same pan. When I pull out what I think is hard solder, I want to know it's hard solder, not accidentally solder something with easy solder and then that joint melts on you later. So one little chip, hard solder. Another nice thing about not cutting all your solder and putting it in this stuff is that little piece in there I know happens to be hard solder, and later when I go back there won't be any loose little pieces, so I won't have to forget, well, is that hard solder, is that soft solder? Putting a piece of solder on something and it being the wrong type of solder, or it not being solder. Okay, once the solder's on there, I'll go ahead and usually put a little extra dab of flux over the top. Alright, we're going to go ahead and you let this dry. If you don't have some way to dry it, you can let it dry overnight. But I want to be a little more active, so I've got a cheap, standard little hair dryer. We're going to dry it with a hair dryer. And you'll know when the flux is pretty much dry because it'll be dry, but it'll also change color. So now it's dried. In other words, all the water's gone. Well, the majority of the water's gone, but it hasn't changed color yet. So there's water still embedded in the flux, and I need to get that out. Okay. The color change, it'll change from sort of a, when it's still a little bit wet, it'll be sort of a gray-white, and then it'll turn into a white-white. Alright, we're going to go ahead and dim the lights here a little bit. And I have my pick just in case something happens here. I'll generally hold the pick over it while I flash it a few times. What this will do is it'll get rid of any of the water in it, and it'll keep the most of the solder and most of the flux in place. Also, if something happens during the soldering process, the solder balls up, I can go in and rake it back. I can kind of use it as a directional device to work with the solder. You don't have to worry about soldering to the pick if the pick is dirty. I generally like to have it not encrusted with junk, but just conveniently dirty. And that way your solder won't stick to your pick. Here we go. And that's it. And this will go into the pickle now.